Chapter 1, New World. Ch1 New World. ******. Gasp! A young boy shot upright in a large bed, breath ragged in the quiet of a tastefully furnished room. Clutching his head, he groaned in pain as a surge of foreign memories flooded his mind. After several tense moments, the pain receded, and the boy slowly opened his eyes, which were now filled with clarity. "I, reincarnated," he murmured. "Alex Fury, that's my name now." He climbed out of bed and walked to the wall mirror. Silver-gray hair. Red eyes, pure and innocent like rubies. Even at 10, this face already screams Lady Killer MC. Though the reflection showed a child, the soul behind those eyes belonged to a man in his 30s. A systems engineer and avid novel reader, reborn in a world of sword and magic. From the memories inherited from his new body, he pieced together that his striking features were hallmarks of the Fury family's Furor bloodline, a lineage known for its immense martial power. The purity of his red eyes should have marked him as a prodigy. Instead, his bloodline awakening had ended in failure. The inability to manifest his bloodline's power and warrior traits caused the family to deem him talentless. He was quietly exiled from Ashen Castle to a remote lodge in the back mountains of the castle, out of sight and out of mind. Young Alex, oblivious of what this meant, buried himself in books from the lodge library. So while his knowledge of the outside world was commendable, his knowledge of his own family's inner workings remained very shallow. "This body's too scrawny," Alex muttered, inspecting himself in the mirror. "That's going to have to change." Knock. "Master Alex, are you awake?" came a woman's voice. "Yes." "Then I'm coming in." The door opened, and a voluptuous, middle-aged maid entered. "You're to have breakfast with the Earl today. We need to get you ready." Before Alex could struggle or even protest, she pulled him along to the bath. Despite her delicate and enticing appearance, her grip was firm and strong. Alex realized she may be stronger than any woman, or man, he'd ever met in his old life. Within the hour, she had washed, dressed, and prepared him like a ragdoll. Dressed in tailored noble wear befitting a young noble heir, she led Alex to step outside where a group of knights waited on horseback. "Young Master Alex, we are here to bring you to the Earl," the lead knight said, remaining mounted and looking down while speaking to his superior. "Looks like I don't have a standing in the family," Alex thought grimly. Without ceremony, the maid lifted him onto the lead knight's horse. With a signal, the group galloped down the mountain towards Ashen Castle. Ashen Castle loomed like an immovable giant over the land. So much so that Alex had to admit that he was indeed in another world. As they entered the castle grounds, Alex saw a warrior slice a training dummy clean in half from 5 meters away. A young mage floated above the courtyard, adjusting his flight spell. Strength and skill were everywhere. The lead knight, who still didn't deign to introduce himself, led Alex through the castle's main corridor. The rough stone walls were adorned with weapons, tapestries, and trophies, silent declarations of the Fury family's martial creed. Soon, they arrived at a vast, dimly lit dining hall. A 10-meter-long table stretched between him and the figure at its far end. Earl Drake Fury, Alex's new father. He was a striking man with silver-gray hair and blood-red eyes, sharper, darker, and more intense than Alex's own. A full beard shaped his stern face, and the edges of his eyes bore crippling wrinkle, showing the marks of time. But despite the age, there was a fierce vitality in his every move. With precise, fluid motions, he carved through a steak, eating quickly yet elegantly. He drank red wine swirling in his goblet between bites, with no drop ever spilling out. His movements were the epitome of etiquette. Even though he was eating too quickly and too much, his elegance made it difficult to tell as several kilograms of beef vanished into his stomach. Alex couldn't deny that Drake was a very graceful and charming man. He straightened his posture and mimicked his father's table manners the best he could. Thankfully, a combination of his past life's habits and the muscle memory of his current body ensured he at least didn't make a fool of himself. At last, Earl Drake wiped his mouth with a cloth and set his utensils down. "You are fortunate and unfortunate to be a Fury," he said evenly. His voice carried a weight that pressed down on Alex's shoulders and encouraged him to look away. Still, Alex forced himself to meet the man's gaze. Drake's lips curled into a faint smile. Even the most experienced of nobles would be hard-pressed to pick out a flaw with my posture and grace. Even though our Fury family has 3 centuries of history, those old-school nobles still see me and our family as one of the nouveau rich. Drake leaned back. On the other hand, there is a figure in our empire who loves to have his way with girls in the middle of their development and yet to mature. In fact, he despises the sight of full-grown women. This figure is called the flower-plucking gentleman. There is another figure called blood-crazed demon. This is someone who must see blood every single day or he would lose control of himself and go on a rampage. He must have a freshly hunted heart before he is satisfied. Only waiting a day more for a rare species. If he goes on a rampage, humans and beast make no difference to him. Still, the old nobles think these two are true role models of nobility. Do you know why? Power. They must be powerful people. Alex answered. Drake's eyes narrowed in amusement. Indeed. The flower-plucking gentleman is the chancellor of our Varelian empire. He is below only the emperor and above everyone else. He is also senior legendary-ranked mage. The blood-crazed demon is one of the guardians of the empire. A warrior who has stepped beyond even the legendary rank. Both men have power such that those old noble houses dare not infuriate them. He snapped his fingers. Servants whisked the dishes away. You are fortunate to be a Fury because you have the foundation to obtain strength and power. But you are also unfortunate to be a Fury because if you do not obtain strength and power, only hell awaits you in every corner. Externally, orcs, grey dwarfs and other hostile races from the north prepare to strike. Other Varelian nobility to the south, sharpen hidden knives for your back to take your lands. Even within this family, while you are my first son, my heir apparent, you are not my only child. Our family is built on strength and power. Compared to your siblings, your personal strength is weak, far too weak. Your prestige within the family, after your awakening ceremony, is also little to non-existent. Your siblings are waiting like hawks ready to strike at any moment to take power from you. Alex said nothing. He already knew. Drake leaned forward. Your ruby eyes mark your heritage. Your failure shames it. People will expect great things, and if you disappoint them, you'll die. His tone grew colder. You've had 10 years of peace. That ends now. If you want to keep your status, your wealth, your life, then gain power. Not just ordinary power, but overwhelming power. Power so vast no one hostile race, other nobles or even your siblings dares challenge it. The air turned heavy. Drake's words struck like thunder in Alex's chest. He stared blankly at his father who maintained his graceful poise as the man's words resounded multiple times in his heart. Earl Drake smiled charmingly again. Once you possess overwhelming power, you will be able to do whatever you want and no one will question you. Be it reasonable or absurd, no one will dare breath a word. Like this. Earl Drake clapped his hands. 3 bound men were dragged in by guards and forced to kneel just a few meters away from where Alex sat. Before Alex could react, Drake was beside him. The Earl drew a guard's sword and, in one fluid motion, decapitated all 3 men. Alex froze in horror. The butler, the maids, the guards, none flinched. Then, one of the severed heads rolled to his feet. Its dead, still pleading eyes met his. His stomach churned and Alex vomited everything he ate. Earl Drake saw the scene and shook his head. He was reminded Alex was just an introverted 10-year-old child and not a battle-hardened veteran. Still, some matters had to be taught quickly. He returned the sword to the guard's sheath and called over a maid who brought him a towel to clean his hands. Alex was in for another shock because rather than take the towel, Earl Drake tore the maid's clothes, revealing her pecky bosom, and used that to clean his blood-stained hands. The maid flinched, but remained still, making no attempts to cover her exposed breasts. Not one person reacted. Alex sat, stunned. Drake turned to Alex, speaking again. They were spies. Traitors. By law, they deserved a trial. But the law is for those with equal strength. He walked over, and held the armrest of the boy's seat, bringing his eyes level with the boy's. Never forget. Only if I hold a sword, and you hold one as well, can we talk law. If I hold a dagger and you're empty-handed, I hold with me the truth and your life. Those who create the rules are often the first to break them. Rules are chains for the weak and tools for the strong. Everything else is falsehood. Morality, law, rules, they only matter when both sides are equal in power. Power is the only truth. Do you understand? Alex nodded, instinctively. Good. Drake straightened. You'll go to a mage tower where you will spend the next few years. Since you lack warrior talent, you'll study magic there. Do not forget what I have taught you today. This is your last chance. I hope you will give me a pleasant surprise. Alex looked at the corpses on the floor. He instinctively held his throat. He nodded again, more solemnly this time. You leave immediately. Alex's eyes widened. Drake ignored him. Jard, the Earl said, turning to the knight who brought Alex from the lodge, you'll escort him as discussed. Brush up his knowledge of the world along the way. As you command. Without delay, Jard swept Alex onto his towering black nightmare warhorse. A dozen knights assembled behind him. And just like that, they departed. Earl Drake Fury stood at the castle window, watching them vanish into the distance. Have the rumors been confirmed? He asked the butler. Yes, my lord. The three human empires all report a surge in planar gate occurrences. The royal mags report it is now twice as easy to obtain spatial coordinates of lesser planes. Some say we're entering an era of prosperity. Drake narrowed his eyes. Prosperity? More likely an era of war. His gaze lingered on the road. You don't have much time, Alex. Grow quickly, because your generation will be one of upheaval. Chapter 2, Mage Tower. CH2 Mage Tower. *****. Alex and his escort of knights traveled westward. Their journey took over 10 days, leading them through shadowy forests and rugged mountain ranges, across the mighty Aegean River that spanned much of the continent, and past the territories of various nobles, including one belonging to a grand duchy. During this time, Alex realized that Jard wasn't necessarily looking down on him, or at least, not only that. Rather, the man was simply a man of few words. He spoke only when he had to. Still, Jard fulfilled Earl Drake's orders. Occasionally, he would speak about the Fury family or explain parts of the world to Alex. Through these short lessons, Alex slowly pieced together a clearer image of his new lineage and of the world he now inhabited. The Fury family, as it turned out, was far from united. Drake Fury had earned his title of Earl through personal merit. If all the lands controlled by various Fury family members were combined, they could rival even a duchy, perhaps even a grand duchy. Unfortunately, the family was riddled with pride and ambition. Its members found it difficult to submit to any singular leader. Independence was more desirable than consolidated strength. Aside from Earl Drake, the strongest among them, there were 4 counts, and over a dozen viscounts and barons with the Fury family name. The world, like many feudal societies, revolved around land and title. Across the Arun continent, nobles waged endless wars to increase their domains and rise in noble rank. Thanks to the existence of planar travel, scarcity of resources no longer limited ambition. Nobles frequently invaded lesser planes, plundering them to fuel their wars back home. In fact, securing spatial coordinates of lesser planes and exploiting them had become an unspoken requirement for nobility itself. Independent powerhouses and private organizations also used planar travel to gather resources. You could say planar travel had become the cornerstone of the world of Pangaea. Yes, this plane realm was called Pangaea. The name wasn't lost on Alex. He had not forgotten the one who brought him here, *_Pangaea. He had theories about that person's true identity, but for now, it was the least of his concerns. As Jard explained, not everyone in this world could cultivate. Only those born with talent could become professionals. Professionals were ranked as novice, beginner, intermediate, elite, veteran, saint, and legendary. There were ranks beyond legendary, but Jard hadn't bothered to elaborate. According to him, the legendary rank represented the top 1% of the world. As for the ranks above that, well, Alex would learn of them if he reached that level. Along the way, Alex also learned from the other knights that Jard was one of Earl Drake's most powerful and trusted men, a mid-stage saint-ranked Dark Knight. Earl Drake himself was a newly risen legendary berserker. After the long, exhausting journey, their destination finally came into view. Alex's jaw nearly dropped. When they set off, he had assumed he was being exiled to some remote, decaying mage tower. But what stood before him defied expectations. The mage tower, no, Dragonhold Enclave, wasn't a mere tower, but a massive mountain-spanning complex. The central tower stood over half a kilometer tall, surrounded by buildings that extended across an entire range and spilled into the tributaries of a nearby bay. This wasn't just a tower. It was the domain of a legend, Merlin Pendragon. To Alex's utter shock, the teacher chosen for him was not only a senior legendary mage, but also one of the Varelian Empire's powerhouse guardians. They were granted entrance without delay. Inside the mage tower, Alex stood in or within a massive hall of impossible design. The chamber shimmered with a dreamlike glow, carved entirely from a single piece of translucent blue crystal, including the throne where Merlin Pendragon sat today. The man looked surprisingly plain, a middle-aged gentleman with kind eyes and a sagely expression, dressed like an old aristocrat rather than a legendary mage. His presence, though, still exuded timeless wisdom and knowledge. And beside him stood a woman, strikingly beautiful, with a voluptuous figure, cascading black hair, and piercing icy-blue eyes that gazed at Alex with gentle warmth. Dressed in a mage's robe, she radiated a mature allure. If it were his past life, Alex might have tried flirting. He nodded at her in greeting, then quickly looked away. Jard stepped forward and relayed Earl Drake's intentions. "My master hopes that you will take young Master Alex as your student, for old time's sake." Alex was surprised by the respectful tone with which Jard used to address him. He quickly realized it was all part of keeping up appearances, for the family's dignity. Merlin shook his head. "If I accepted every noble's child on the basis of old time's sake, my tower would be filled with them. He possesses the purest Furor bloodline seen in generations," Jard responded without hesitation. "Though he lacks talent in the warrior path, his intellect is promising. His path surely lies in magic." Merlin turned his gaze on Alex. The boy felt as though the mage were peering into his very soul. The legendary mage's expression lit up. Even the crystal hall seemed to shimmer in response. "He certainly has wisdom beyond his years," Merlin said thoughtfully. "An essential trait for a mage." "How far can I go?" Jard straightened. "You may do whatever you deem necessary. The only condition is that young Master Alex returns a competent man by Pangaea standards." Merlin nodded slowly. "I hope Drake understands that I only use the best and finest of materials. So too would my student. The cost of my personal guidance will be significant, even if only in material cost alone." There was a long pause before he added, "For old time's sake, I'll accept 10 years' worth of profits from one of his primary planes." "In plain time?" Jard asked. "Of course not. Pangaea time." Jard's lips twitched. That was a heavy price. Time in Pangaea flowed slower than in most lesser planes. 10 years here could be decades, or even centuries, elsewhere. The cost amounted to nearly half of Drake's projected income for the next decade. It would severely impact his military ambitions for the upcoming upheaval. Still, Jard nodded. The deal was struck. Merlin added, "I'll also help the boy with his bloodline issue. I assume that's why he was sent here." Jard exhaled in relief. That was the Earl's minimum requirement. As the knight turned to leave, he paused and looked back at Alex one last time. The cost of the deal was staggering. He could only hope the boy would prove worth it in the years to come. He and the Fury Knights departed immediately, returning to Ashen Castle. Merlin turned to Alex. "From today, you are my student. You will obey my instructions completely, without hesitation or question." "Understood." "Yes," Alex replied firmly. He'd read enough cultivation novels in his past life to know what was expected of an acolyte. "This is my daughter, Zora. Her instructions are to be followed as if they were mine." Alex nodded again, his expression growing serious. He buried his earlier thoughts about her even deeper behind a mask of focus. Zora gave him a soft smile. It calmed him more than he expected. "Bring him to the examination hall," Merlin instructed. "Yes, father." Zora led him through portals, glowing elevators, and winding hallways until Alex was thoroughly disoriented. They finally arrived at the examination hall, a space filled with alchemical equipment, arcane arrays, and magical instruments whose purposes Alex couldn't begin to guess. Zora handed him over to the supervising mage and departed through a portal, returning to her father's side. Curiously, Alex wondered why Merlin hadn't just teleported him directly here. He was asked to remove his clothes, drink a glowing potion, and lie on a cold metal bed where he was bound. Then, an array of needles, some thin as hair, others as thick as pencils, pierced into his flesh. Ordinarily, a grade 0 detection spell would suffice to test an acolyte's potential. But for the handpicked student of the tower's master, the mags pulled out all the stops. Merlin and Zora observed through a private surveillance spell, accessible only to the highest authority in the tower. Zora calmly prepared tea for her father as the results came in. Alex shivered in pain as his consciousness alternated between awareness and numbness. High elemental affinity. No dominant element, balanced across the board. He convulsed as elemental energy surged through him, testing his magical resistance. Significant magical resistance detected across all elements. Passive absorption of ejected mana detected. Then came the worst. A spiritual probe pierced his very soul. Impeccably strong spiritual force, far beyond the level of a genius. The next round of examinations focused on his physical condition, and surprisingly, the results were even more concerning than his magical aptitude. On paper, his individual parameters suggested he possessed a powerful physique. Muscle fiber toughness, bone strength, neural conductivity, all obtained data were impressive. And yet, something deep within him seemed to be limiting the actual overall functioning of his body. It was as if a hidden force at his very core was suppressing his potential. The tests dragged on for hours, culminating in a thick stack of reports filled with conflicting data and perplexed observations. When Alex finally regained consciousness, the supervising mage informed him of the final verdict. His overall performance was excellent, just short of the threshold that could have marked him as a genius. Aside from his overwhelming spiritual force, there were no major abnormalities nor special attributes to take note of. At the very least, they said, he was guaranteed to reach the rank of a great mage, an above-average result by all standards. But Alex hardly paid attention to any of that. The moment he woke up, he realized something had changed. The world looked different, richer, more vibrant. He could now see strange, shimmering particles floating in the air. These particles moved subtly, drawn toward the mags in the room. As they entered each person's body, the particles would shift in color, adapting to the dominant hue of that mage's internal mana. Then it happened. One of the mags activated a fire spell. In that instant, Alex watched as the surrounding particles surged toward the tip of the mage's wand, turned a brilliant crimson, and ignited into flame. It clicked. He had awakened an ocular ability, one that allowed him to see mana. Chapter 3, Rune-Tech Magic Eye. Ch3 Rune-Tech Magic Eye. *****. 1 month later, Alex woke up to a world bursting with vibrant colors. Every morning for the past month, his eyes had opened to the swirling colorful world of ambient mana. According to Merlin Pendragon, his new magic teacher, this unique perception was the result of an ocular mutation, a rare manifestation of his bloodline. Alex found this explanation too simple. The ability to perceive mana was an inherently mage-like ability. However, the Furor bloodline was a warrior-type lineage. He found it contradictory. His reader senses tingled. It could only mean one thing. There was another pure bloodline in his body, likely from his mother's side. Unfortunately, he knew almost nothing about her. She had died when he was very young, and he'd been raised by maids and nannies at Ashen Castle before being sent to the lodge. Still, he suspected her bloodline wasn't ordinary. After all, it had somehow overridden the powerful Furor bloodline. Perhaps it was why his Furor talents had failed to manifest at all after the family's awakening ceremony. Too bad contacting Ashen Castle was not possible. His father had severed all communication until Alex returned a proper mage. That said, while Spirit Sight was the most prominent ability from his ocular mutation, it wasn't the only one. There were also enhanced vision and eidetic memory. Alex climbed out of his king-sized bed. His dormitory at Dragonhold Enclave was so opulent it made his prized apartment from his previous life look like a broom closet. 11 rooms made up the suite: a bedroom, living area, dining room, meditation chamber, combat room, a general-purpose lab, and 5 specialized magical laboratories. On top of that, a detached storage annex held another half-dozen rooms for his growing collection of magical items. Each space was tastefully furnished in the elegant, arcane style favored by mags. He had just finished cleaning up when breakfast arrived. A young female acolyte, around 15 or 16, had been assigned to deliver his meals by the Enclave's task hall ever since his arrival. Perks of being the personal student of the Enclave's master. As usual, the girl emphasized that he could call on her whenever, for whatever. She always ensured there was some form of skinship, however subtle. Alex, of course, understood her intentions, but he feigned ignorance. The girl had a sweet voice and was still growing into her looks, but to him, she was just that, a girl. While his current body was 10 years old, and adulthood in this world began at 15, the 30-something soul in him still held onto the basic morality of his previous life. "My name is Asta. Don't forget it, Alex," she said for the nth time, flashing him a smile as she left. Alex sighed. The girl was nothing if not persistent. He'd deliberately avoided calling her by name, hoping she'd take the hint and lose interest. Alas, she mistook his aloofness for shyness. Worse, she saw him as an innocent, oblivious, and more importantly, handsome, 10-year-old boy. He pushed the matter out of his mind and focused on the meal in front of him. Awakening a bloodline ability had its perks, but it came with a downside. His appetite had increased significantly, especially since most of his bloodline abilities were passive and constantly drained his energy. If he didn't eat well, he'd burn out. He devoured the meal quickly and prepared for the day. If Alex had to describe Dragonhold Enclave in one word, it would be university. The Mage Tower's structure and operation were strikingly similar to the universities he knew from Earth. There was a research wing, filled with mags studying magic, and an academic wing where formal classes were taught by high-ranking or exceptionally knowledgeable mags. Acolytes and even full mags could attend these lectures. For an acolyte to graduate and be recognized as a full mage, they had to demonstrate mastery of the fundamentals of a chosen mage class, magic path specialization, usually through a practical demonstration or a detailed research paper, akin to a thesis. Each student was assigned a supervisory lecturer. In Alex's case, that meant Merlin Pendragon, which, in the analogy, placed Zora akin to his graduate teaching assistant, though her responsibilities were far more significant. "I never thought I'd be back in university, in another world." Alex chuckled at the thought. Ordinary acolytes had the freedom to pick and choose their classes, provided they could afford the tuition. Class fees and materials were collated and the bills were sent out monthly. No payment, no access to new classes. Alex didn't have that freedom. Merlin had handpicked a rigorous curriculum for his first month, filled almost entirely with foundational subjects. Mathematics, planar geometry, magic philosophy, world theory, world systems, planar organism study, essentially biology, analysis of living beings, anatomy, matter composition study, chemistry, history of races, spell formation, and more. His schedule was crammed, comparable to that of a postgrad student on a crash course. His monthly bill was sky-high. Only then did Alex understand why his father had to pay so much upfront. He wondered how other students managed with the intensive curriculum. He had only survived thanks to the eidetic memory ability. For a significant mana cost, Alex could record anything he saw through his eyes and replay it later. If he actively reviewed the footage and focused on the important parts, it would be etched into his long-term memory, becoming impossible to forget. Today marked the final class of his brutal first month. After that, he would have to make an important decision about his path forward. Foundational Magic Philosophy was an open class available to anyone in the tower. Alex noted a diverse group of students: humans, elves, orcs, trolls, ranging from children to elderly octogenarians. Yet, even the oldest among them didn't have mana signatures above intermediate mage level. Magic demands talent, he mused. For something so logical, it can be illogically cruel. He took a seat at the front. A few minutes later, a bearded elf entered, causing a stir. A bearded elf? That's rare. Elves usually considered beards a dwarven trait and avoided them entirely. Must have been raised in the tower, Alex reasoned. The elf ignored the stares and began his lecture. There are many schools of thought in magic. One of them is the top-down philosophy, which proposes that we must first understand the world before we can empower ourselves. A plane and its laws are integrated into one, as such one must obey the laws of the plane if one is to grow within it. Even the strong cannot escape this fact. Grand mags who rise by understanding derivative pseudo-law risk punishment from the plane, while legends who have begun to touch upon the true basic fundamental laws risk having to battle against the entire plane. The laws of a plane defines its fundamental characteristic nature and power system. If you ever travel to another plane, your first step should be to analyze its laws and power system, then adapt your battle method accordingly, allocating resources and exploiting the environment instead of fighting against it, and ending up being restricted by it. Always remember, from top to bottom, from the plane to thyself. The lecture went on for an hour before it ended. On his way back, Alex ran into Zora. Lady Zora, he greeted respectfully. Though he privately thought of her as Merlin's grad assistant, in reality, she was the Enclave's majordomo and seneschal. Her authority was second only to Merlin's. How are you, Alex? I stopped by to remind you about our meeting later today. You haven't forgotten, I hope. Of course not. Good. I trust you'll have made your decision by then. She gave a small nod. All right, off you go. Alex returned to his dorm. According to his schedule, it was time for spell practice, then meditation. He had chosen 2 basic grade 0 spells as his starting point: Magic Arrow and Magic Ball. Both could evolve into higher tier elemental variants, like Fire Arrow or Fireball. Other acolytes might have moved on to flashier spells, but Alex stuck with them to build his basics. His spirit sight allowed him to observe how mana behaved during casting, and his engineering mindset pushed him to optimize as much as he could. For example, Magic Ball originally took 2 seconds to cast, had a 5-meter radius of effect, and consumed 5 mana particles. With practice over the latter part of the month, Alex had managed to reduce the casting time to under 1 second, near instant cast, doubled the area of effect, and kept mana cost the same. Now he was working on reducing the mana requirement altogether. Eventually, he succeeded during this practice session. 4 mana points for Magic Ball. And I was also able to add horizontal spin to Magic Arrow. Alex grinned at the battered training dummy riddled with holes. The dummy, said to mimic the defense of a fully armored knight, had been utterly wrecked. I'll need a new one. That's going to hurt my budget. Each dummy cost 1,000 gold coins. Outrageous, considering 1 gold could feed a family for a month. Who gives a 10-year-old boy a budget in a costly place like Mage Tower without supervision? Merlin, apparently. According to the old mage, a proper wizard must possess both intellect and wisdom. Managing coin is part of that journey. Alex downed a 70 gold mana potion and began meditating. Meditation is hard with an overactive mind. Still, I've reached 13 mana points. Almost a mid-stage novice. Afterward, he relaxed in a steaming bath, mulling over the upcoming meeting with Merlin and Zora. Once a practitioner surpassed the novice rank, they were required to choose a class to specialize in. Earl Drake had become a berserker. Nightjard was a dark knight. Zora was an ice mage, while Merlin was something called a dragonslayer mage. Things worked a little differently for the personal student of the Dragon Enclave's master. Unlike regular students, Alex was required to choose a mage class earlier than usual. Merlin insisted on this so he could tailor a personalized lecture itinerary to suit Alex's chosen path. Unfortunately, after attending over 100 lectures in just a month, Alex still hadn't been able to narrow down his choice. There were simply too many fascinating options, and for a reincarnator like him, the possibilities felt endless. He was spoiled for choice. Absent-mindedly, Alex muttered the chant for the magic arrow spell. A translucent spell circle formed above his palm, and a glowing arcane arrow materialized, floating steadily under his control. He didn't fire it, he just observed it. His attention lingered on the spell circle. Most people couldn't even perceive one, but Alex could see the spell circle with spirit sight. Adding on enhanced vision, he could even see clearly the runes that made up the structure of the spell circle. It intrigued him. Kind of reminds me of the Smart Ink project the team was working on before I ended up here. Leave it to a bunch of tetchy web novel nerds to come up a tech tattoo idea for the military. I still can't believe the DoD generals actually signed off on that madness, he thought with a chuckle. If only I could apply that kind of knowledge to this world's magic system. How amazing would it be to create my own custom class? The moment that thought crossed his mind, something shifted. An idea, no, a seed, took root. His eyes remained fixed on the faintly glowing spell circle. His mind raced, recalling fragmented details from dozens of lectures and disciplines he'd studied in the past month. That's it! Alex exclaimed, leaping to his feet. He dismissed the floating arrow and scrambled to get dressed. Moments later, the strange sight of the Dragon Enclave Master's newest student sprinting through the central campus drew curious stares from all directions. Alex was running as if his life depended on it. Maybe it did. The seed of an idea in his mind had sprouted into a fragile sapling, and Alex knew he had to water and nurture it quickly before it withered away. For that, he needed to see his master ASAP. Chapter 4, Rune-Tech Magic 2. CH4 Rune-Tech Magic 2. *****. Thanks to a series of portals and magic elevator platforms, Alex quickly arrived at the top section of the 500-meter-high central enclave tower where Merlin's office was located. "Alex, you are here? I wasn't expecting you for another half hour. The tower master isn't back yet." Zora raised her head from the piles of documents she had been buried in. Alex's enthusiasm deflated instantly. He wanted to float the vague idea he had by his master before he lost the flash of inspiration. Zora noticed the change in the youth's expression. "Did you have something you urgently needed to tell the tower master? Is it about your class?" Alex nodded. "Yes. I just got an idea for my class, but I am not sure if it is tenable, much less if it is feasible. I was hoping to run it by master." Zora looked at the piles of documents on the table, then back to the boy. "You know what? I have been looking for an excuse to get out of these documents. Would you like me to listen to your idea? It could help you flesh it out before you present it to the tower master." "Really? Are you sure? You seem busy." "Don't worry about it. I am sure." "All right then." Alex smiled. For some reason he wouldn't explain, Alex felt a truthfulness towards Zora. It wasn't based on any logic, but rather on an instinctive level. He had thought it was because she was a beautiful woman, but he quickly realized that it was more than that. Whatever the case, he was more than willing to share his idea with her. Then again, it wasn't like she or anyone else but him for that matter could pull it off. Alex tried to gather his thoughts, which were all jumbled in his head. "Don't try to force it. Just let it flow out naturally," Zora suddenly said. She had a calming smile on her face which steadied the boy. He nodded. He followed her advice and just spoke. "The advice master gave me for choosing a class was to choose the one that appealed to me the most. Maybe a class that had a magic effect I liked or could help me get what I wanted. My goal for coming here to study magic is to gain power, both personal strength and military might, in order to take the reins of my family as its rightful heir. In that case, I decided upon choosing a class that could offer me both." Zora nodded in understanding. "I don't suppose that was easy." She commented. It wasn't. They either offered one over the other or not enough on both ends. Alex concurred. I realized I couldn't get what I wanted within the current available path, at least, not without paying a significant price. I concluded that I needed to come up with my own path. I needed to think outside the box if I wanted to get what I wanted. So, I looked back at all the lectures I attended within the month, and I found the answer. Runes. Runes? You intend to become a runesmith or an array master? No, runesmiths engrave set known runes to empower weapons and items in a defined manner, while array master use runes set up large spell formations that can affect their surroundings. Both classes are external in nature. While they can help me obtain military might, it is difficult for either of them to help me on the personal strength side. Besides, they both only make use of known runes. What I am thinking goes further than that. He looked at her and declared, I intend to master all runes. Immediately, Alex noticed the look of disappointment on Zora's face. In the best case, one could say she was skeptical about his idea. In the worst case, she dismissed his idea as the grandiose thinking of a child. Please hear me out. Alex quickly said. This isn't just childish thinking, please. Zora looked at him for a moment. She realized he was serious, so she decided to postpone judgment until she heard him out. Okay, fine. Go on. So, in my last class, the lecturer said something that caught my notice. Each plane has laws and power system that must be respected if one wants to grow within that plane. This stood out to me because it indicates that planes operate on some sort of logic system. Then, in that case, there must be a set of instructions that guide that logic system. Alex raised his hand and instacasted the magic arrow spell. Same as before, the magic arrow hovered over his hand without firing. He intentionally weakened the spell, making the arrow smaller. The arrow wasn't what he was trying to show her. Instead, it was the spell circle. He used spiritual force to make the spell circle as visible as he could. Whenever we chant for a spell, our spiritual force instinctively forms a spell circle which are made up of runes, through which a mana flows and activates the spell. Look here, if I modify the spell chant and my mental state, I can alter the spell circle, thus altering the spell. Alex pointed to some part of the spell circle. Wherever he pointed, Zora saw a noticeable change in the tiny rune glyphs forming the circle. This then corresponded to a change in the floating magic arrow. Under Alex's control, it enlarged, shrank, span horizontally and finally vertically. It was clear the boy was in full control of the spell. If nothing else, the mastery he showed over the spell was enough for even Zora, a genius 20-something elite mage, to take him seriously. From this, I concluded that the logic system for mana for our Pangaea plane and other like it that have mana is for mags to use runes in form of spell circles to issue instructions to mana to achieve a certain goal. In that case, if one can fully master runes, one could in theory issue any command to mana as they want. For example, I could cast any spell I want, ignoring all conditions. As long as the spell is activated by mana, by mastering runes, I will be able to use it. A plane and its laws are integrated as one. So if there is a law or logic system which allows this, then it must mean the planes accept it as part of its power system. So, if I can truly achieve this, my theoretical magic would be recognized as a valid class in the power system. Zora looked at Alex with some measure of shook. The level of thought and the quality of thought process in his idea was beyond anything she would have ever thought a 10-year-old would be capable of. Your reason is definitely tenable. However, that is all. A deep voice suddenly sounded before Zora could speak. Merlin had arrived. At some point, a portal had opened in the room, unbeknownst to Alex and Zero. The Dragonhold Enclave Tower Master looked at his latest student with some appreciation in his eyes. He took a seat and continued, "You need more than a tenable idea to create a new class. You need something feasible. A lot of people across time have tried to master runes like you. So far none have succeeded. What make you think you can succeed when all these genius scholars and mags of their time have failed? I don't intend to solve the mysteries of runes myself. Instead, I will get the world's logic system and the runes themselves which forms it to help me master the runes. Alex responded. Due to the prior exchange, neither Merlin nor Zora dismissed his words. Instead, they waited for him to explain. Alex paused for a moment to think of how to articulate his idea, which was based on his work on AI in his previous life, to people who don't even know what programming is. In spell formation class, we were taught that there are 3 levels to runic inscriptions: single runes, rune circuit, and runic arrays. From this, I understood that each rune is like a set command to mana. For example, a heat rune is a command for mana to heat up or warm an object. A light rune is for illumination, and so on. A runic circuit, on the other hand, are runes linking together to something akin to a sentence. For example, imagine a runic circuit formed from heat rune plus activation rune plus threshold rune. The runic circuit will allow the object heat up, heat rune, when touched, activation rune, but only to certain extent, threshold rune, thanks to linking of the runes. This circuit is better than just an ordinary single rune because it prevents mana waste drain. In doing this, we have created automation, i.e. an automatic response. This is essentially a form of conditional logic, albeit a simple one like an on/off switch. If we look at arrays, instead of one linear sequence, we have a series of multiple circuits, linked to the same energy source, that are modifying each other continuously in response to the real-time situation. Based on this, we can already see that runes are adaptive and change according to the situation. In that case, if I am able to string together the right series of instruction and commands in the form of an integrated web of runic circuit and arrays, I can teach my rune formation to deduce other runes and their meanings. Then, they take those newly understood runes into the formation and use them to learn about other runes, and so on, until all runes are understood. Only after Alex finished did he realize he had gone on a nerdy rant. He didn't know if his audience got the idea or not. So he added, basically, what I am trying to do is create something like a mathematically formula. If I plug in the runes I already know into the formula should be able to derive other runes. Then, the formula by itself takes in the new runes and improves itself in order to derive more runes that it didn't before. This sparks a continuous automated learning process that continues until the system has an understanding of all runes. If it succeeds, I would be able to trace back all runes to their source. And if you do that, all you have to is instruct the array to carry out a particular task, and your array would string together the sequence of runes to make that task possible. Zora said. Hence, why you think this system will allow you to use all magic. Yes, exactly. Alex heaved a sigh of relief seeing Zora understood him. Even in his previous life where computers and programs were already a part of everyday life, it hadn't been easy to explain how automated self-learning systems, so-called AIS, worked to people. It was a relief someone without the basic background still understood him. Zora and Merlin looked at each. Father and daughter could see the amazement in each other's eyes. Perhaps if this came from scholar from Merlin's generation, they wouldn't have been so surprised. But this revolutionary idea came from a 10-year-old boy. Your idea is certainly fresh. Merlin commented. What do you need to make it work? Knowledge. I need as much knowledge on runes and spell circles as I can get. The more runes I can use to form the foundational work, the better. Alex replied. Merlin nodded. He inwardly curated a timetable of lecture subjects that would aid Alex in his endeavor. Your idea is certainly intriguing. But at the moment, that's all it is. From your own explanation, being able to use all types of magic by just stringing together runes isn't something that would happen anytime soon. It would take years or even decades before you can achieve it. But I can see how it has the potential to become the foundation of a new magical class. What you need to do now is to provide a proof of concept. Show me that your idea actually has merit in the real world. Alex nodded in understanding. Creating a prototype is the basic common way of proving an idea isn't just that an idea. How much time do I have? He asked. Ordinarily I would give you 6 months, but due to the novel and challenging nature of your endeavor, I will give you until your first anniversary as my student. Show me something solid by then, or you will walk a path of my choosing. Merlin said gravely. Alex just smiled. This wasn't his first time facing a deadline. He wasn't pressured like Merlin expected. Quite the opposite, he found himself in his comfort zone. Suddenly, Zora pinched her father. She made some subtle motions with her head. Merlin seemed to understand her intentions. He gritted his teeth and unwillingly said, "In addition, you will receive the Enclave's grant in order to support your research. All your expenses, including lectures, study resources, and valid research materials will be discounted by 30%. Cough. Zora faked a cough. 50%. Merlin corrected himself. Also, if you succeed, the Enclave will cover the cost for setting the foundations for your magic." Zora added. Merlin's eyes flamed. Clearly this had surpassed his bottom line. Before he could complain though, Zora motioned towards the mountain of paperwork on the desk she had been working on. Merlin's anger vanished instantly. He even put on a flattering smile. Zora humphed and turned back to Alex, who was amused by the father-daughter pair's silent exchange. "By the way, have you thought about what you intend to call this new magic, if you succeed?" Alex thought about it for a moment. "Naming was never my strong suit. Well, the basic premise is to fuse of runic and magical knowledge here with the science and technology from my previous life. So, Rune-Tech magic." Alex answered. Chapter 5, Rune Difficulty. Ch5 Rune Difficulty. *****. Alex left the Tower Master's office more composed than when he'd entered, but if one looked closely, there was a distinct spring in his step as he walked away. Back in the office, Merlin turned to Zora with a mock-wounded expression. "I can't believe you sided with an outsider. I'm hurt." Zora chuckled. "Nice try. You and I both know you were going to give him the grant anyway, with or without me." "Yes, but I wouldn't have offered that much. The last thing I want is Baldric sniffing around my office. You'll deal with him, by the way. This is your mess." "Fine," Zora muttered through gritted teeth. Merlin laughed at her expense, clearly enjoying himself. Then, with a sudden shift in tone, he asked, "Do you really believe in him?" Zora paused, nodding slowly, then shook her head. "I don't know. There's something about him, his passion, maybe, that makes me want to give him the benefit of the doubt. I want to believe in him." "You think he might be able to help with that matter?" "No. I've already given up on that," she said quietly. "Right now, I just want to help a bright, stubborn little boy, and maybe help the tower while I'm at it." He said his plan could solve both his lack of strength and his need for military power. Merlin blinked. "Wait. Come to think of it, we only heard the part about his personal strength." Zora nodded. "Exactly. But if that's just half the plan, and the other half is just as ambitious enough to build military strength for an out-of-favor noble heir, then imagine what that means for the Enclave. If we support him, we might be able to build our own independent combat force." "My Enclave doesn't need a force. I'm still around," Merlin replied. Zora gave him a long look. "But you won't be around every time something happens. Right now, the tower relies on you and the 20 Grand Mags for defense. If even a few of you are absent, the Enclave becomes vulnerable. And beyond defense, a trained force means we can actively pursue planar coordinates and harvest resources more extensively." Merlin didn't respond, but his silence was telling. "Just so you know, I haven't given up on your matter. We'll find a solution, one way or another. So don't lose hope." Merlin said. "Yes, father," she said, smiling sweetly. 3 months later, a 3-foot-tall gnome marched down the corridor toward the Tower Master's office. Every mage in his path quickly found a reason to disappear. Some ducked behind doors, others turned on their heels and vanished entirely. The gnome's sharp copper eyes darted around, scanning faces and muttering about coin. Anyone who fell under his gaze felt a chill crawl down their spine, as if their net worth were being coldly assessed. This terrifying presence was not a legendary mage. Not even an elite mage. He was worse. He was the Enclave's chief financial officer, Baldric Pinchcoin. In Dragonhold Enclave, where resources were power, the man who managed the coffers held more sway than even some Grand Mags. especially when that man was a miserly gnome with a memory like steel and a grudge against financial inefficiency. Debtors feared him. But there was one thing he hated even more than unpaid debts. Grant. Unlike debts, grants weren't repaid. To Baldric Pinchcoin, they were financial sinkholes, black holes where gold vanished forever. And today, his target was the tower's newest grant recipient. Baldric arrived at the tower master's office, adjusted the thick spectacles sliding down his hooked nose, smoothed back his thinning auburn hair, and marched inside. To his dismay, Merlin wasn't at the desk, Zora was. "Baldric," Zora said, glancing up from a stack of documents. "This is unexpected." "The urgency of the matter couldn't wait," he said briskly. "Lady Zora, we have a problem. 1 million gold coins. That's how much is spent in just 3 months. He slammed down his steel-bound ledger like a declaration of war. "I hereby move to cancel the grant issued to Master Alex Fury." His eyes flared with indignation. To Baldric, grant recipients were parasites. At least debtors could be forced to pay eventually. Grant recipients just consumed resources, no return, no accountability. For a miserly gnome accountant who would query his staff for using more precious ink than necessary for their work, grants might as well be somebody flaying his skin. And this one was the worst yet. Zora suppressed a sigh. No one in the tower, herself and Merlin included, wanted a visit from Baldric Pinchcoin. But he was a necessary evil. His obsessive personality made him the best accountant in the tower. His grasp of economics, taxation, and interplanar trade was unrivaled, utterly vital to the Enclave's operations. "Earl Drake already sent the first-year payment," Zora said calmly. "And the tower master opened his personal vault to offset the cost. I don't see the issue." Pinchcoin opened his ledger, floated over to her desk, and pointed at several complex charts. "I ran projections. Based on spending trends of previous disciples, there's a 30% compound increase quarter over quarter. If this holds, Master Fury's grant will cost the Enclave 3 million gold by year's end." Zora's eyes widened. "That will gut this year's budget," Pinchcoin continued. "Unless the Tower Master opens his vault again, we'll have to revise our financial allocations. That includes grants to hundreds of mags, some of whom are great and grand mags." Zora leaned back and exhaled. She hadn't expected the ripple effect to be so severe. "This is just a projection, right? How much time do we have?" "At the current rate? 1 quarter, Pinchcoin said. "That's our buffer. After that, we'll start feeling the pinch. And if I may speak frankly, his spending habits are unpredictable. They don't follow any pattern. He's acting like he has an unlimited budget." "I'll talk to him," Zora said. Pinchcoin nodded. That was the best outcome he could hope for. He turned to leave, then suddenly stopped. His nose twitched. Pinchcoin blinked. That twitch only meant one thing. He smelled profit. "If I may, Lady Zora, what exactly is Master Alex working on? If I understand the nature of the project, I might be able to evaluate its financial viability. Perhaps even optimize procurement or reduce costs." Zora froze. Was this really happening? Baldric Pinchcoin, the tower's tightest miser, offering to assist a grant recipient? She almost thought she was hallucinating. Still stunned, she said, "To be honest, I don't understand it either." The tower master approved the grant on the spot, just after hearing the idea. Baldric's eyes gleamed. His nose twitched even more. "Aha!" he whispered. "He offered. This might be big. In that case, I will personally oversee Master Alex's procurement. I'll ensure he gets the best materials at the best price. This will be a win-win for him, and for my department." Zora frowned. She wasn't sure whether to be suspicious or grateful. "Okay," she said at last. The gnome left, practically humming. Zora sat in silence for a long moment, still processing what had just happened. Eventually, she gave up trying to understand it and returned to her work. "I need to go see Alex. It's been 3 months, and he hasn't submitted a single progress report." She stood, straightened her robe, and left the office. Things weren't going as smoothly as Alex had hoped. 3 months of intense work, trying to develop a self-operating runic circle system modeled after programming logic, had yielded only frustration. His attempts to replicate a self-learning mechanism with complex runic inscriptions had hit an unexpected wall. Alex had sacrificed sleep, reduced his rest to just 4 hours a day, and devoted another 6 to attending Merlin's curated lectures. The rest of his time was spent buried in his specialized lab, inscribing, testing, recalibrating, again and again. The walls, ceiling, and even the floor of his lab were filled with overlapping layers of runes. Together, they formed a massive 3-dimensional array, so densely packed that only Alex could make any sense of it. Now, lying flat on the cold stone floor, he stared up at his creation, exhausted. His body screamed for rest, but his mind refused to shut down. Another failure. Even with a 3D array, I still can't process all the parameters to initiate automatic processes. Why? Arrays are annoyingly inconvenient. They need to be perfectly calibrated, no room for trial and error. If this were code, I could just debug on the fly. He palmed his face in frustration. No, that's just an excuse. I must be doing something wrong. Alex got to his feet and scanned the array again, combing through every line and curve, every rune stroke. Everything looks right. So why won't it work? Does this mean programming logic can't be applied to rune scripting? Or am I missing something obvious? 10 minutes passed. Still nothing. Defeated, Alex left the lab with a heavy sigh. Ding tilde. He glanced at the door. It's not time for Asta to deliver food. A visitor. Curious, Alex opened the door and blinked in surprise. Lady Zora. May I come in? She asked. Of course. After exchanging pleasantries, Zora got straight to the point. How's the project going? Poorly, Alex admitted, leading her to the lab. Zora stepped inside and immediately stopped, eyes wide. Every surface in the lab was covered in compact runes. Not a single inch of space had been left untouched. What stunned her wasn't just the density, but the fact that the array hadn't collapsed under its own pressure. Typically, mana-infused runes expanded slightly once activated. This often caused overlaps, triggering array failures. Experienced array masters used advanced techniques to avoid this. But Alex hadn't used any of those. Even more shocking, every rune was basic. He'd built this entire complex formation without shortcuts or enhancements. You did all this with basic rune techniques? She asked, almost in disbelief. I brute forced it, Alex said. I controlled the thickness of each rune line to account for mana expansion. But that created another problem. The thinner the line, the less mana each rune could hold, which limited their effectiveness. So I had to develop custom inks with different mana concentrations to compensate for the deficit. Though his explanation was simple, Zora immediately understood the painstaking work it must have taken to calibrate each rune this way. There were hundreds of thousands of them. No wonder his eyes looked sunken. He had likely overused his spiritual force multiple times. Is that why you needed so many resources? She asked. Yes, but now that I've created the inks, I won't need to spend so much anymore. Zora couldn't bring herself to criticize him. Instead, she asked gently, so, what do you think the problem is? I don't know, Alex replied, scratching his head. I've gone over every single rune. I didn't make a mistake, at least not one I can find. But still, nothing works. Zora smiled. In that case, come with me. Way. You'll see. Don't worry, it won't take long. She dragged him through the portal hub and, using her authority, teleported them to the very top of the Enclave's central tower, the highest point in the entire Dragonhold. The sky was clear. From this vantage, the view was breathtaking. Alex could see the full expanse of the Enclave below, its vast cityscape spread across the dragon-shaped mountain range, stretching all the way to the bay. It had none of the modern charm of Earth, yet it carried a profound sense of ancient grandeur. At night, this place is even more beautiful, Zora said softly. The lights of the city below, the stars above. It's unforgettable. I come here when I need to clear my head. Sometimes, the best ideas aren't forced. You have to let them come to you. A change of scenery helps. Alex nodded. He understood. Back on Earth, whenever he was stuck on a project, he would binge-read web novels to reset his brain. By the time he finished, inspiration would usually strike. Unfortunately, novels weren't exactly popular here. Options were limited. Maybe it's time I find a new hobby, he thought. He took a deep breath, exhaled slowly, again and again. And then, as his mind cleared, he saw it. Not the city. The mana. Up here, the ambient mana was different, more concentrated, more volatile. It shifted constantly between elemental forms, dancing in unseen patterns. A change in view. Maybe I've been looking at this all wrong. Mana is unstable. Trying to control it with a static structure. No wonder the system fails. The moment mana shifts, the entire array breaks down. It's like writing computer code on paper and expecting it to run. His eyes widened. That's the flaw. I tried to create a dynamic program with static runes. Without adaptability, it can't process changes or recompile functions mid-execution. Of course it failed. Relief and renewed energy washed over him. He turned to Zora. Is there a tool that allows runes to be modified mid-use? Something that allows active correction? Not for arrays, she said, but for spell circles, yes. Spell circles are just runes in motion. That'll work. Then you're looking for a grimoire, Zora replied. They're used by wealthy mags to store large sets of spells for fast casting. Some even use them to develop new spells. You can alter chance on the fly without losing control. I see. Since chance forms spell circles, being able to alter chance means the circles are dynamically shifting too. What material is used to make a grimoire? For low to mid-grade ones, a Morrow diamond works. The higher the quality, the more storage and stability it offers. I'll need one. I'll get it for you, Zora promised. But from now on, come to me first before you request any more resources. Alex raised a brow. Zora sighed. Let's just say, your spending has people worried. You've drawn attention. I've smoothed things over for now, but you'll need to keep a low profile. Alex nodded. Once I have the Morrow diamond, I shouldn't need anything too outrageous. They stayed on the tower for another half hour until Zora was satisfied he'd recovered his mental balance. On the way back to his dorm, energized by a renewed sense of purpose, Alex found his path blocked by a gang of 5 males, about 15 to 17 years old. Judging by their robes and insignias, they were fellow novice-ranked acolytes of the Mage Tower. The lead boy stepped forward. You Alex Fury. Alex paused. He could feel the hostility behind the question. Who's asking? The guy who's going to beat you up. Before Alex could react, they attacked. Slow. Bind. Restrict. A flurry of grade 1 debuff spells hit him at once. He couldn't move. The lead acolyte cracked his knuckles and advanced with a sneer. Chapter 6, Furor Bloodline, Calm Madness. Ch6 Furor Bloodline, Calm Madness. *****. Bang! The gang leader's fist slammed into Alex's stomach. The boy doubled over like a folding chair and crashed to the ground, gasping. Seriously? Down from just one punch? You call yourself a fury? The leader sneered. Get him back up. 2 goons grabbed Alex by the shoulders, yanking him upright, while the remaining 2 maintained the binding spells that kept him restrained. The leader stepped forward, fists ready, and continued his assault. Beg, he said between punches. Just beg me once, and I'll let you go. Alex said nothing. Even as pain racked his body, he remained silent, his gaze locked onto the leader. Unnoticed by all, a change crept into his ruby-red eyes. Slowly, they deepened into a fierce crimson, eerily similar to his father's, Earl Drake Fury. Kill! 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 The whispers came like echoes in a storm, and with them, an overwhelming surge of bloodlust erupted from his gaze. The gang leader froze. He shivered, an involuntary tremor running down his spine as though he'd been plunged into the abyss. Marcus! He only recovered when one of his goons holding Alex in place called out to him. Marcus blinked, shaking off the chill only to find his back drenched in sweat. Did I feel fear? From just a look? Me? Marcus Hatarian. Shame burned in his chest, quickly replaced by fury. He drove his fist into Alex's face, sending the boy crashing to the ground again. Hey! Marcus! One of the gang members barked. We agreed. No hits to the face. What the hell? It's nothing, Marcus said dismissively. That punch won't even leave a mark. He's a waste of the Fury family, but still a Fury. He'll be fine. Well, I'm out, the goon replied, stepping away. Whatever, Marcus muttered. He turned to Alex, now sprawled on the floor. The crimson glow had faded from the boy's eyes. Was that just an illusion? Yeah, of course. He's nothing. Just the family disgrace. There's no way someone like him could ever frighten me. This suits you, Marcus said mockingly. Trash like you should always be on the ground. Know your place, Fury. Crawl when you see true nobles like me. He drove a kick into the boy's body while he down. The group burst into laughter as they walked away. 10 minutes later, Alex forced himself up, body bruised and blooded, and staggered back to his dorm. Once inside, he calmly retrieved a vial of Enclave Standard Basic Healing Potion, worth 70 gold, and downed it in one gulp. The relief was almost immediate. At least, physically. Mentally, it was a storm. His ruby eyes kept flickering between gentle red and the vengeful shade of bloodlust. The whispers in his mind gradually dulled to a faint echo, but their presence lingered. He didn't need anyone to explain where they came from. The Furor bloodline. A cursed legacy that bestowed tremendous power, at a cost. Heightened emotions, particularly wrath, were its fuel. This was the first time Alex had felt it stir, an undeniable sign. His bloodline was awakening, and that was both a blessing and a curse. The power was his to claim, but so were the consequences. Even now, though the bloodlust had subsided, his body still trembled with barely suppressed rage. You are fortunate and unfortunate to be a Fury. His father's voice echoed in his mind. You've had 10 years of peace. That ends now. If you want to keep your status, your wealth, your life, then gain power. Not just ordinary power, but overwhelming power. Power so vast no one hostile race, other nobles, or even your siblings dares challenge it. Alex's fists clenched. The words rang true. They only dared attack me because I'm weak. They fear the Furor bloodline, but only when its inheritor is strong. Right now, they see me as a failed heir. A waste. Powerless. Once you possess overwhelming power, you will be able to do whatever you want and no one will question you. Be it reasonable or absurd, no one will dare breath a word. They broke the rules by attacking me inside the enclave. That means they're confident someone or something powerful is backing them. And just as confident no one will protect me. Never forget. Only if I hold a sword, and you hold one as well, can talk law. If I hold a dagger and you're empty-handed, I hold with me the truth and your life. Those who create the rules are often the first to break them. Rules are chains for the weak and tools for the strong. Everything else is faucet. Morality, law, rules, they only matter when both sides are equal in power. Power is the only truth. Power is the only truth. Alex whispered. He sat there, motionless, for over an hour. I can't keep acting like I'm in my old world. This isn't a land of laws. It's a world where strength is justice. They could kill me tomorrow and nothing would happen. Even if someone cared, I'd already be dead. He exhaled slowly, the last of his hesitation bleeding out with the breath. I have to use every resource I have to grow my strength and obtain power, my knowledge, my abilities, my rune-tech, and now, my bloodline. Fortunately, I have a path forward for my Rune-Tech foundation. And now, thanks to those bastards, I have a way to fully awaken the Furor bloodline within. I'll make sure to repay them, Alex said. Unknowingly, a smile filled with cruel intentions tugged at his lips. Unaware of the change within himself, Alex Fury had just taken his first true step toward embodying the signature trait of the infamous Fury family: calm madness. The next day, Alex walked through the same quiet alleyway where he had been attacked before. Just like the day prior, he was ambushed again by the same gang of 5 older acolytes. The third day, same thing. By the 6th day, the gang didn't even bother hiding anymore. They openly assaulted Alex as soon as he appeared, beating him within an inch of his life. As always, Alex would drag himself back to his feet, stagger to his dorm, and heal himself using a high-grade potion. And every time, he smiled. It was an eerie smile, increasingly unsettling. His crimson eyes shimmered with silent rage and madness, a sight that would have terrified his attackers had they seen it. On the 7th day, Alex changed tactics. Instead of using the secluded shortcut, he took a more public, roundabout path to his dorm. Bastard! Marcus hissed after waiting hours in vain. Find him. The others grumbled but followed his orders nonetheless. It was already too late to back down. 8th day. 9th day. Alex continued avoiding them. By the 10th day, the gang was convinced they had broken his spirit. That a Fury was now hiding from them. Drunk on confidence, and irritated from wasting days, they decided to confront him directly, this time near the lecture hall. You cowardly Fury, trying to run again. Marcus sneered. They dragged him from the path and into a quiet corner, preparing to beat him down once more, this time in full public view. Stop right there. The booming voice of a lecturer cut through the air. It was the Orc warlord instructor from the class Alex had just attended. You dare attack a peer within the enclave? The professor raised a hand, casting a barrier spell that separated Alex from his assailants. No, Professor, Marcus stammered. We were just talking. Right. Fury. Alex dusted himself off and gave the Orc warlord a polite nod. Then, he turned to Marcus with a cold glint in his eyes. Marcus Hatarian, do you dare face me in a duel? He challenged, voice calm, yet biting. Or are you only brave when hiding behind ambushes and goons? His eyes shimmered crimson, and Marcus involuntarily took a step back. There's something wrong with this kid, Marcus thought. Better not engage now. Sorry, but no, Marcus said, regaining his composure. I gain nothing from dueling someone younger and weaker. Alex smiled coldly. You didn't care about that when you ambushed me. If you're scared, just say so. The Orc professor's intervention had drawn a crowd, and Alex's words cut deep, humiliating Marcus and his gang before a growing number of onlookers. While strength was respected in Pangaea, the Enclave still held order. Bullying those weaker than you, especially with overwhelming numbers, was seen as disgraceful. You! Marcus began, but Alex cut him off. Dragon duel, Alex declared. I'll stake my remaining grant balance, 250,000 gold coins. A hush fell over the crowd. Marcus's throat went dry. Even as a noble, his entire net worth didn't reach that. I get it, Alex continued mockingly. You're jealous because you are poor. Don't worry, I'll settle for your wand and your precious grimoire. Those are the only things of value you own anyway. You! Enough talking. Do you accept, or are you just full of air? Marcus was seething, but there was no way he could touch Alex with the Orc warlord watching. Fine, he spat. Since you're so desperate to pay me to give you a sound beating, why not? I accept. Good, Alex nodded, turning his back on him without a care, under the stunned gazes of everyone present. Marcus clenched his fists, burning with rage at the dismissal. Remember, the Orc warlord warned, dragon duels are sacred. Interfere in any way, and you'll be executed on the spot. The gang shivered as the temperature seemingly dropped a few degrees. With that, the professor walked off, and the crowd dispersed. The gang was left alone. Then they burst out laughing. He really challenged you, one goon said. A dragon duel, no less, another added. He may not have awakened his bloodline yet, But he still has the fury pride. Marcus grinned darkly. I'll grind that pride into the dirt. Let's go tell the boss, someone suggested. We'll fan the flames, make sure the whole enclave sees the fall of a fury. The group made their way to the enclave's upper-class quarters. What? Alex challenged someone to a dragon duel. Zora shot up from her chair in shock. Chapter 7. Duel. CH7 Duel. *****. Zora was working in the Tower Master's office as usual when a middle-aged mage from the enforcement hall knocked and entered. Lady Zora, I bring urgent news. Master Alex Fury has challenged a peer to a dragon duel. He reported. What? Zora shot up from her chair. Who did he challenge? Marcus Hatarian, a novice mage. He and his gang have been bullying Master Alex for over a week. It seems Alex finally had enough. A mere acolyte dares to harass an official disciple of the Tower Master? Why wasn't I informed of this sooner? Zora's tone dropped the room's temperature. Though the enforcement mage was a peak elite-ranked mage, half a step from becoming a great mage, he instinctively shivered under her icy glare. As expected of the Tower Master's daughter, he thought. A monster begets another monster. We reported the situation directly to the Tower Master, the mage replied calmly. He instructed us to intervene only if there was a threat to life. Zora's brow twitched. Also, Marcus Hatarian is one of Master Helmut Wastelander's underlings, he added. Zora's expression darkened further. Helmut Wastelander. He must be up to something. She exhaled sharply. The dragon duel can't be stopped. Then dash. Increase the protective detail around Alex, she ordered. No one must interfere with the sanctity of the duel. She stepped closer to the enforcement mage, her presence pressing. And I mean no one. Am I clear? Crystal, Lady Zora. You're dismissed. Yes, my lady. As soon as he left, Zora cast a spell. A swirling portal opened before her, and she stepped through without hesitation. The portal opened into a hidden chamber deep within the Dragon Enclave, a place that resembled the lair of a sleeping beast. Zora approached a massive figure lying dormant. A creature over 20 meters tall rested in the cave's center. You allowed Helmut to go after Alex? She asked the air. No, Merlin's voice echoed around the cavern. I simply told the enforcement hall not to intervene unless Alex's life was in danger. So, you knew your personal disciple, a child, was being bullied by a gang of fully grown adults, and you let it happen. I'm raising a predator, not a greenhouse flower, Merlin replied coolly. Age means little in Pangaea, even less in the battlefields beyond our plane. If he cannot even subdue some mere acolyte thugs, how can he hope to make a name for himself in our world? Zora pursed her lips. She didn't like it, but she understood. The Wastelander brothers are overstepping, she said at last. This isn't their family's duchy. Very well. If Alex wins, I will send the Wastelanders, and their backers, a warning. Good. She turned to leave. It's not enough, but it will do. As she vanished into a second portal, Merlin chuckled. To think my cold-hearted ice queen of a daughter would care so much for someone. Did the boy awaken her maternal instincts? I wonder. The cave fell silent again, save for the slumbering breaths of the enormous creature. News of the duel exploded across the enclave by sunset. Whispers echoed in dorm halls, lectures paused for chatter, and taverns roared with gossip. In pubs and tea halls, the rumors only grew louder. A group of mags gathered around a table in one such pub. Did you hear? The Tower Master's new disciple challenged someone to a dragon duel. That's old news. The whole enclave knows by now. Anyone know who he is? Just that he's a Fury. As in the Fury family, one man gasped. Earl Drake, Count Gordon, Countess Megan, that Fury family. The same. Who'd be crazy enough to duel a member of that lunatic bloodline? Well, this one's different. A younger mage chimed in. My cousin works in admin, heard some details. Speak, brother. You're among friends. Someone pushed a mug toward him. The young mage grinned. His Earl Drake Fury's son, Alex. Apparently, his bloodline hasn't manifested, and his warrior talent's mediocre. That's why he was sent to the Mage Tower. Apparently, his bloodline is really potent, but he couldn't manifest it. His warrior talent is also mediocre. This is why he was sent to the Mage Tower. That explains it. Most Furies are warriors. Never heard of one going full mage. But still, a Fury without combat prowess. Right, which is why he was being bullied by a gang of older acolytes led by Marcus Hetarian. I don't have to tell you why a Hetarian would attack a Fury, right? The informant revealed. That's true. Given how Countess Megan has been harassing the Hetarian lands, Marcus probably sees this as payback. Plus, Marcus is Master Helmet's lackey, and Helmet's a Tower Master's disciple too. So this is about internal disciple politics, someone gasped. Seems so. From what I heard, Alex got a personal grant from the Tower Master only a month in. Although I don't know what the grant was for, we all know how notoriously difficult it is to get a grant from the Tower Master. Master Alex must have achieved something great to have received it. That alone is enough to make enemies. Highs, whistle. Doesn't that mean Master Alex is likely to win this duel? Not necessarily. Another person spoke up. I heard Baldric Pinchcoin was fuming about Master Alex's spending. Most of it were on materials, not spells. I believe Master Alex is more of a researcher than a fighter. That is the only way to explain how he can spend so much that Pinchcoin would fume about a grant personally given by the Tower Master. The informant spoke again. You are right. According to what I was able to find out, Master Alex has only requested and seen practicing 2 Grade 0 spells, Magic Arrow and Magic Ball. What if the Tower Master taught him other spells? A pub-goer asked. You must be new in the tower. Everybody knows the Tower Master only teaches his disciples spells directly when they reach intermediate mage rank. Another replied. Even if the Tower Master taught him other spells, Master Alex has only been at the tower for 4 months. How many spell can he learn in that time, much less master? Marcus Hetarian is a peak novice who is on the verge of becoming a full fire mage. The difference is too clear. Then, why challenge Marcus to a dragon duel? Pride. He's still a Fury, bloodline or not. Poor kid's gonna get torn apart. Looks like we shouldn't expect good odds in the betting square since the result is so clear. Well, you can make a fortune if you bet on Master Alex. Yeah, no. I would rather use my money for something else. The kid doesn't get beaten up too badly. The tavern's mood shifted from excitement to cautious pity. While the odds were clearly against Alex, the sheer audacity of his challenge kept the enclave abuzz. Everyone was watching, and many were placing bets. The day of the duel arrived. Calmly and without fanfare, Alex Fury stepped out of his dorm. His gait was steady, his posture composed. The only sign betraying his inner turmoil was the occasional shimmer of crimson in his eyes, evidence of his struggle to suppress the surging emotions stirred by the Furor bloodline. He arrived at the duel arena, a massive coliseum built specifically for dragon duels. It could hold thousands of spectators and was reinforced with layered arrays, capable of containing the destruction wrought by great mage-level combatants while shielding the audience from any residual effects. Duels were rare in the enclave. Most disputes were settled through compensation, negotiation, or arbitration. After all, it was costly to both duelists. The cost for the arena, fees for damages, fees for the officiating mags, and the risk of serious injury or death. The dragon duel was even more so. This was the closest thing to a life-and-death battle permitted within the enclave. Still, most spectators were relaxed. It was hard to imagine a duel between 2 novice acolytes ending in fatality. Many had come purely out of curiosity, or to gamble on the outcome. Inside one of the VIP rooms overlooking the arena, a tall youth watched the preparations below. His arrogant smile widened as he saw Alex enter the stage. The door opened behind him, and a cold breeze accompanied the entrance of a blue-haired woman. Lady Zora, welcome, Helmet Wastelander greeted coolly. A clever move setting up this farce. Helmet, Zora said icily. Did you think if Alex lost, the Tower Master would cast him aside? I'm simply testing the strength of our master's newest disciple, he replied smoothly. Zora narrowed her eyes. Who are you to question the Tower Master's judgment? Because you're one of Duke Wastelander's sons? Don't forget, you are only one of many such sons. She released a pulse of chilling aura that sent Helmet staggering backward, struggling to breathe. And this is Dragonhold, she said flatly. Her point made, she turned to leave. You better pray Marcus wins. If he doesn't, you will answer for interfering with the Tower Master's plans. She vanished through the door. It took Helmet a moment to recover his composure. Gritting his teeth, he growled. Arrogant wench. You will become a slut of the Wastelander family soon enough. He looked back at the arena. As for you, little waste, enjoy your last moment of dignity. Alex and Marcus stood 20 meters apart in the center of the Colosseum. Neither spoke. Ding tilde. The duel began. Both began chanting. Marcus's chant was smooth and precise, proof he was no mere acolyte. With confidence, he cast the signature spell of a fire mage. Fireball. The spell soared forward, fast and dangerous. A grade 2 spell with a splash radius of 10 meters. Even a glancing blow would be devastating. The audience stirred. Many were surprised that Marcus was already at the beginner mage level. Alex was still chanting. A grade 0 spell no less. Magic ball? A collective sigh of disappointment rippled through the crowd. But then, something strange happened. Alex's chant deviated. Grade 0 derived spell, Magic Shield. A translucent dome burst into existence, absorbing the fireball entirely. What? Marcus's eyes widened. Magic Shield was a grade 3 spell, normally requiring the mana pool of an intermediate mage. How had Alex cast it? Before they could recover from the shock. Grade 0 derived spell, Magic Bullet. A glowing arrow formed above Alex's hand, then split into 3 bolts. They shot toward Marcus like streaks of light. 2 bolts pierced his legs. The third slammed into his right arm. Marcus screamed and collapsed. The duel should have been over. But Alex wasn't finished. Silence. Restrict. Bind. 3 spells fired in succession, sealing Marcus's movements and voice. Then came another barrage of magic bullets, each one striking with precise brutality. None were fatal, but all were painful. Marcus stared in horror at the boy approaching him, his crimson eyes glowing with quiet fury. He understood now. He had provoked a predator. Stop. That is enough, an elderly voice boomed. A grand mage appeared by the barrier, cloaked in formal robes. His presence weighed heavily on the arena. Your opponent has clearly lost. There is no reason to continue, he said sternly. Alex turned toward him. His glowing eyes met the old man's. The grand mage flinched. The boy's face, those eyes, they bore a strong resemblance to him, the Mad Earl, Drake Fury. But retreat wasn't an option. He was already involved. He raised his hand. Telekinesis. He tried to pull Marcus toward him. What are you doing, Roderick? Are you interfering in a dragon duel? Roared a deep voice. An orc grand mage appeared, accompanied by the warlord who had previously defended Alex. Don't slander me, a grut. Roderick Eber snapped. This fight is over. It is not a fight. It is a duel with their lives on the line. If no one yields, the duel continues. Amid their argument, Alex kept walking toward Marcus. His voice was cold. Magic arrow. The spell hovered above his hand. He could have instant casted it, but he chanted slowly, deliberately. A final blow. Alex, please stop. He paused. Zora's voice cut through the tension. Alex turned to her. For a moment, she didn't recognize the boy behind those terrifyingly calm, cold crimson eyes. But then, the glow faded. His usual ruby red returned. I'm sorry, he said, but I must remind some fools that choosing peace is not the same as weakness. His tone was chillingly quiet. He chanted again. Don't worry. For you, I won't kill him. Grade 0 derived spell, Magic Blade. The arrow shifted mid-air, morphing into a razor-sharp crescent blade. It shot forward and severed Marcus's dominant right arm cleanly. Alex released the restriction spells. I Ren, Do. Marcus gasped before fainting. Alex turned to the stunned crowd. His gaze swept across the arena, calm, cold, and resolute. Then, without another word, he walked away. The duel was over. Chapter 8, Bloodline Space. CH8, Bloodline Space. *****. Silence. The entire arena was frozen. No one had given Alex a chance going into the duel. That sentiment only grew when it was revealed that Marcus wasn't just a novice but a full-fledged beginner mage. It took several moments after Alex's departure for the crowd to find their voices again. Who was it that called him weak? Come out and say it again. I dare you, someone muttered, breaking the silence. You can't blame them, another responded. Even his own family considered him a failure. We should have known better, someone else sighed. The Furies are lunatics. We expected their idea of weak to be the same as ours? That's on us. The truth is, Fury Weak might still be stronger than most people's definition of strong. Discussions quickly picked up as the shock wore off. Not only was he not weak, he's just as ruthless as the rest of that cursed bloodline. He severed his opponent's arm in front of 2 Grand Mags and Lady Zora. It might have been kinder to kill Marcus outright. Losing your dominant arm ruins a mage's ability to cast precision spells. Not to mention the mental trauma. I think that was the point. That arm is a message. Don't mess with a Fury. I wonder how Earl Hatarian will react to the news. What can he do? Moving against Alex now means dealing with Earl Drake Fury. Earl Hatarian already struggles with Countess Megan, the reasonable one of the Furies. He won't want to tangle with the Mad Earl too. Let's be honest, Marcus brought this on himself. He poked a sleeping tiger. Did he really think the son of the Mad Earl would be ordinary? When has a tiger ever birthed a house cat? Forget Marcus. What I want to know is, how did a novice cast Magic Shield? Even intermediate mags struggle with that spell. Yeah, and what was that triple shot magic? That wasn't a magic arrow, right? While the general crowd could only speculate, the higher seats, occupied by seasoned mags, saw through it all. A circle of great mags and grand mags analyzed Alex's performance with calm interest. I understand now why the Tower Master favors him, one grand mage said. He's a natural-born spell formation genius. That's underselling it, another replied. His understanding of spell structure and practical combat application is well beyond his rank. He couldn't have derived those spells midcast without both knowledge and talent. Dispersing the mana from a magic ball into a defensive dome, then using its shockwave characteristic to neutralize the fireball. That level of creativity is rare. And let's not ignore his version of the magic arrow. He split it into smaller bolts. The reduced mass of the arrow allowed the bolts to travel at a faster velocity than a normal magic arrow. He didn't just cast spells. He evolved them in real time. It was simply a masterclass in spellcasting. If I had a student like him, I'd throw millions in grant money his way too, if I could afford it. A few sighed in admiration. Do you think Agrut's interference means he'll be involved in future disciple disputes? Doubtful, one grand mage replied. Orcs value tradition. He stepped in because Roderick tried to interfere with a dragon duel. That was his only reason. Good. I was worried this would drag us into the tower's internal drama. That's a muddy swamp I'd rather not wade into. Agreed. Elsewhere in the arena, a different kind of chaos was unfolding. Ow! I lost everything. This was supposed to be a guaranteed win. A man howled in misery near the betting square. Damn Marcus Hatarian. How incompetent must a mage be to lose to an acolyte? Who's going to refund my losses? Another grumbled bitterly. Most had bet on Marcus. But a lucky few had wagered on Alex. Sensing the danger from the furious losers, those fortunate few collected their winnings in silence and made quick exits. The gamblers weren't the only losers that day. In one of the VIP boxes, Helmet Wastelander raged. Anything he could get his hands on was smashed to pieces. Useless trash. All the resources used to make him a beginner mage, wasted. That damned wench Zora will use this as leverage to stall my plans. Damn it all. But more than Marcus's humiliating defeat, what truly unsettled Helmet was the punishment Zora had promised on behalf of the Tower Master. He didn't dare waste time. He bolted out of the arena and rushed toward his dorm. He needed to alert his family, fast, before Merlin, the legendary Dragonslayer mage, acted. Alex, on the other hand, ignored the buzz surrounding his victory and calmly returned to his dorm. Well, not exactly calmly. His body trembled. His head throbbed. Despite appearances, the duel had been anything but easy. He had overdrafted both his mana and spiritual force. Overdrafting core energies, mana, internal energy, spiritual force, could be extremely dangerous. At best, it would leave one weakened and unable to regenerate for a time. At worst, it could permanently cripple one's ability to use the energy, or even result in death. Thankfully, Alex's spiritual force was innately resilient. But his mana, that was the issue. He stumbled into his room, grabbed a high-quality mana potion, downed it in a single gulp, and immediately sat cross-legged to meditate. But the moment he closed his eyes, BA dump, BA dump, BA dump, the sound of his own heartbeat thundered in his ears, drowning out all other senses. Then, his mind blanked. When Alex regained clarity, he found himself in a dark, unfamiliar space. Before him stood two altars. One flickered between crimson and ruby red, tinged faintly with gold. The other was a pure, radiant white gold. Between them, a shallow pit brimmed with a glowing white gold liquid from the latter altar. Alex quickly realized what this place was. A bloodline space, a metaphysical dimension tied to ancient and powerful bloodlines. Only those with exceptional bloodlines, and who met strict conditions, could ever enter this realm. For those that did, it signaled the potential to become a bloodline warlock, someone who could consciously tap into their bloodline's latent power. The presence of two altars confirmed it. Alex had not one, but two bloodlines. And judging by the matching height and presence, both were of equal, extraordinary potency. He instinctively understood. It was his Furor bloodline that had brought him here. The beatings, the pain, the bloodshed, none of it had been for mere revenge or to prove himself. He had orchestrated it all to awaken the bloodline. The humiliation from Marcus's gang had pushed his suppressed emotions to the brink, and his ruthless retaliation had satisfied the bloodline's dormant cravings. Now, there was just one step left. Alex walked up to the Furor bloodline altar, which trembled violently, fluctuating between ruby and crimson as if trying to burst free. It wanted to grant him power, but something blocked it. He glanced at the other altar, the white gold one, and realized the answer. Without hesitation, he stepped beside the pit and slammed his fist into the altar. Crack! His knuckles split open, skin tearing, blood spilling, but he didn't stop. His eyes gleamed red, in sync with the pulsing altar. Buried emotions, pain, abandonment, loneliness, resentment. Everything the original Alex had felt after his failed bloodline awakening ceremony surged forth. The altar had denied him once. He wasn't going to accept that again. Bang! 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 Time blurred as he pounded the altar with blooded fists, until, at last, his hand broke through the stone. A stream of red gold liquid burst forth. He stumbled back as the viscous energy flowed freely into the pit below. Interestingly, the red gold of the Furor bloodline did not mix with the white gold liquid already present. Instead, the two bloodlines sat side by side, equal in volume and intensity, yet unmixed. At some point, Alex had become fully unclothed, his body stripped bare by the mystical transformation. He stepped into the pool, right at the center where both liquids met, and submerged himself. Instantly, pain exploded across every nerve. Ah! Alex's scream echoed only within his mind as his body convulsed in the real world. Muscles tore. Bones cracked. His blood boiled. The Furor bloodline rampaged through his body like wildfire, tearing him down only to rebuild him anew. His face twisted between excruciating agony and euphoric bliss. Eventually, after what felt like an eternity, the pain faded, the chaos calmed, and Alex drifted into a deep, dreamless slumber. Groan tilde. Alex groaned as he stirred awake, half a day after his transformation. His bones creaked in protest as he pushed himself up. It took a moment, but eventually, he managed to stand on steady feet. Strangely, his perspective felt higher. He staggered over to the mirror, blinking slowly at the reflection staring back at him. He had grown. He now stood at 5 feet tall, a noticeable leap from his previous height of just over 4 feet. A full head taller, in fact. It was a dramatic transformation, one brought about by the successful manifestation of his Furor bloodline. But that wasn't all. His facial features had become sharper and more defined. The innocent, baby-faced charm he once had given way to a sharper, more mature allure. He now looked less like a pretty boy and more like a devilishly handsome rogue. There was just one downside. "I'm scrawny again," Alex muttered with a sigh. The muscle mass he'd painstakingly built up over 4 months had been burned away, devoured by the awakening bloodline to fuel its rampage. Thankfully, it didn't seem like something proper meals and nutrition couldn't fix over time. Beyond the physical, Alex could sense subtle, intangible changes stirring deep within. Changes in perception, in sensation, possibly in strength or affinity. But he would need time and careful study to understand them fully. For now, there was somewhere he needed to be. He tossed on a clean mage robe, adjusted it with a practiced motion, and stepped out of his dorm. Not long after, he stood before the doors of the Tower Master's office. Chapter 9. Profit from the Duel. A.N. Please reread the previous chapter. Made some changes to the ending. Thanks. Enjoy the chapter. Ch9 Profit from the Duel. *****. When Alex entered the office, he found Zora locked in a tense staring contest with a gnome. The gnome was none other than the Dragonhold Enclave's chief financial officer, Baldric Pinchcoin. The gnome's nose twitched wildly as the scent of gold wafted into the room. His eyes lit up the moment he saw Alex step inside. "Master Alex, you've finally arrived. Your plan worked beautifully. The coffers are brimming with gold again," Pinchcoin exclaimed, practically leaping from his chair. "It was thanks to Sir Pinchcoin and the finance department. I merely pointed out an opportunity," Alex said humbly. "There's no need for modesty, Master Alex. I know how much you had to endure to make this happen. The finance department is in your debt." The gnome beamed with uncharacteristic enthusiasm. "I'm simply doing what I should. The Enclave gave me a new lease on life. What's a little suffering if I can help offer that same chance to others?" Alex replied smoothly. Zora watched, stunned, as the boy and the gnome engaged in what seemed like a well-rehearsed routine of mutual flattery and strategic diplomacy. "With this, I assume the issues surrounding my grant spending are resolved?" Alex asked, cutting to the heart of the matter. "Of course. Not only that, we've set aside a discretionary fund specifically for your use. Continue your research in peace. Our department will handle the pesky funding matters. Just remember to inform us when another profitable opportunity arises." "Yes," Pinchcoin added with a knowing wink. Alex could almost swear he saw himself reflected in the gnome's eyes, only as a mountain of gold. "Of course. I'm just a novice mage. I'll be relying heavily on your department's expertise to turn opportunity into profit," Alex replied with a smile. "Excellent, excellent." Pleased, Pinchcoin turned to leave. But just before he reached the door, he paused and patted his balding head. "Oh, I almost forgot. Lady Zora mentioned you're looking for a Morrow crystal. After hearing what you need it for, I suggest you hold off for a month. I recently received word about a tear of Zon becoming available." "What? A tear of Zon?" Zora's voice broke into the conversation, clearly stunned. "Is it better than a Morrow crystal?" Alex asked. Zora nodded, then explained, "The tear of Zon is usually used alongside other rare materials as the core component in crafting grimoires for Grand Mags. It not only has a higher mana capacity than a Morrow crystal, but also boasts superior fault tolerance and adaptability. The difference is night and day. She frowned. Skeptical, she asked, but a number of Grand Mags are hunting for that material. Why offer it to Alex? Pinchcoin chuckled. There's been a misunderstanding. I'm not offering him a pristine tear. The one I have is damaged. It's unsuitable for the rigorous demands of grimoire crafting. And since it's not used for anything else due to its cost, this particular tear is effectively worthless to the Grand Mags. Master Alex won't incur the ire of the Grand Mags for getting it. He turned to Alex. For your purposes, it is more than sufficient. It also helps reduce potential losses from the procurement process, Alex added. Exactly. What was it you said before? It's a win-win. Pinchcoin grinned shamelessly, unbothered that his motivations had been laid bare. Alex looked to Zora, who gave a small nod of approval. Very well. I'll take it, Alex said. Excellent choice, Master Alex. I'll have it delivered to you as soon as possible. No rush. I actually have a substitute I can use for practice. I'd rather the tear not get damaged further from hasty transportation. Understood. Pinchcoin departed, leaving behind a stunned Zora, who stared at Alex like he'd grown a second head. Is something wrong, Lady Zora? I've never seen Baldric act like that with anyone. Not even with the Tower Master does he speak so harmoniously. He's respectful, yes, but never friendly. And I've certainly never seen him willingly spend more gold than necessary. A tear of Zon is thousands of times more expensive than a Morrow crystal. The Pinchcoin I know would never offer it unless absolutely forced. Alex chuckled. That's because most people don't understand him. Sure, he comes off as a miser, and maybe he is, but he's not stupid. He understands something most others ignore. Training a mage costs money, lots of it. For an institution like the Enclave, which is committed to educating mags and pushing the boundaries of magic, funding is everything. Right now, the Enclave's main financial pillar is the Tower Master himself. From a finance perspective, that's risky. What happens if the Tower Master can't continue funding the Enclave? Or worse, what if he's no longer around? Pinchcoin is working hard to diversify income sources and stabilize the budget. That's why he's so strict and so thrifty. I simply showed him I wasn't an expenditure, but an investment. And to prove it, I gave him a small demonstration yesterday. Yesterday? The duel. Alex smirked. Didn't you notice the gambling dens were unusually crowded? Now that you mention it, what did you do? We created hype around the duel. Pinchcoin's people spread the word across the Enclave, painting me as weak and Marcus as the clear winner. The story caught fire. Most people bet heavily on Marcus, thinking his victory was guaranteed. When he lost, all that money went to the house, the Enclave's coffers. Zora's eyes widened. In one night, the Enclave earned more than it usually does in weeks, maybe months. And just like that, the cost of my grant was recovered, and then some. To Pinchcoin, I'm no longer a cost, I'm a profitable asset. In his previous life, Rune-Sage had served as a lead engineer and team leader on multiple high-level projects. Working within a corporate structure, he quickly learned a critical truth. A good product wasn't enough, funding was everything. Funding was the lifeblood of any organization, especially in the corporate world. One of the most important lessons he learned was the value of maintaining a good relationship with the finance department. That rapport opened doors, expedited approvals, and kept his teams functioning when others were cut. So when Zora informed him that his recent spending had rubbed some people the wrong way, Alex immediately suspected the finance department. It didn't take long to identify the culprit. Baldric Pinchcoin was well known, infamous, really, throughout the Enclave. Learning more about him was easy. Having just been ambushed by Marcus and his gang, and suspecting that there was more to the attack than petty bullying, Alex devised a plan to deal with multiple issues at once. A single, calculated move, the duel. Pinchcoin mentioned another faction had also been stirring up hype for the duel, Alex thought. That's likely Marcus's backers. Now, all those who lost money at the gambling den will blame Marcus and his backers faction. Whether they realize it or not, this will definitely weaken their influence in the tower. By orchestrating the duel and its surrounding spectacle, Alex didn't just awaken his bloodline. He improved his standing with the Enclave's finance department, painted a target on those who had plotted against him, and converted public sentiment in his favor, all in one strike. One stone, multiple birds. As for the gamblers who lost money on the duel, Alex couldn't be bothered to care. In his eyes, he'd done them a favor. He had taught them a lesson that held true in every world. No matter how sure the odds seem, the house always wins. Chapter 10, Solution to Bloodline Conflict. Ch10 Solution to Bloodline Conflict. Asterisk. There's something different about you, Zora said, eyeing Alex closely. Indeed, Alex admitted without hesitation. Is that why you didn't tell me you were being bullied? Part of it. Zora didn't look pleased with the response. If I had told you, you would have intervened, Alex added. And that's a bad thing. I know you mean well, Lady Zora. But there are some challenges I need to face on my own. You can't protect me from everything, and nor should you. Zora pursed her lips at his words. Besides, this time, the bullying was under my control. I allowed them to bully me, because I needed it. What do you mean? Zora finally took a proper look at Alex, and noticed the changes. You. Oh, you've fully awakened and manifested your bloodline on your own? That's a surprise, a deep voice interrupted. The Dragonhold Enclave's Tower Master, Merlin Pendragon, stepped out of a portal. I didn't expect such a pleasant surprise after returning from collecting compensation from the Wastelanders, he added, then noticed the tension in the air. What? Did I interrupt something? Alex resisted the urge to facepalm. I was just about to tell her about my bloodline awakening. You ruined the moment, Master. Is that so? Merlin shrugged and walked over. He grabbed Alex's wrist, and Alex instantly felt something invade his body. Don't resist. I'm checking your condition, Merlin instructed. His frown deepened as he assessed Alex's state, but he said nothing about it. So, how does it feel to finally awaken your Furor bloodline? Turbulent, Alex sighed. I had to get beaten repeatedly while staying calm through the rage just to rouse it. I felt filthy, my skin crawled. But I endured it. Only when the bloodline reached its limit and threatened to erupt did I finally fight back, intentionally. It kept pushing for a brutal retaliation before it would settle. That's why you severed his arm, even with Grand Mags present? Zora asked. Yes, Alex nodded. I thought it was to make a statement. It was that too. Zora massaged her temples. Let me get this straight. After I warned you about the grumbling regarding your grant, you got bullied by Marcus Hatarian. During that time, your dormant bloodline began to stir. So, you devised a plan that not only awakened your bloodline, but also resolved your grant problem, humiliated your attackers, and improved your reputation. Yes, that sounds about right. Zora stared at him, speechless. I guess it's my fault for thinking you were a normal 10-year-old. Is it your Furor bloodline that makes you so different? Or just you? Alex chuckled wryly, choosing to take the rhetorical question in stride. He quickly shifted the topic. Master, even after rousing my bloodline, I still had to enter the bloodline space to complete the awakening. He explained his experience in the bloodline space to Merlin. Isn't it strange that the Furor bloodline was able to drag me in even before it fully awakened? No, you've got it backward, Merlin replied. What's strange is that you needed to enter the bloodline space to awaken it. It sounds to me like your Furor bloodline did awaken during your family's ceremony, but chose to go dormant afterward. That would explain why you couldn't show its traits in the latter half of the ceremony. My other bloodline was similar, Alex added. It was the potion I received during the talent examination that triggered it. Is it possible that they both went dormant to protect me? Why do you think that? Zora asked. It was just a feeling I got in the bloodline space. The two bloodlines felt antithetical, like positive and negative charges repelling each other. They wouldn't mix. "You're not far off," Merlin said gravely. "Your situation is dangerous. While dual bloodlines seem advantageous, in your case, it's a problem. Normally, one bloodline dominates and suppresses the other, achieving balance. But in your case, both are equally powerful and completely opposed. Your Furor bloodline leans toward the warrior path, aggression, and negative energy. The other, by contrast, is gentle, aligned with the mage path and positive energy. They clash in every conceivable way. The fact that you inherited both and survived, it's a miracle." Zora's eyes widened slightly. "They're coexisting for now only because they know your body can't handle a direct clash. But that truce won't last forever. Sooner or later, they will battle for dominance." Alex's gaze darkened. Was it a mistake to awaken the Furor bloodline so soon? He wondered. "No. I had to. Without it, I wouldn't be acknowledged as a Fury, and let's be honest, in stories like this, I'll probably need that family connection eventually, whether I want it or not. What should I do?" Merlin fell silent for a moment, deep in thought. "There are several ways to solve your situation," he finally said. "They fall into 3 categories." He raised 3 fingers. Cleanse, assimilate, or balance. Cleansing would remove one of the bloodlines and eliminate the source of conflict. Alex shook his head immediately. No. It was one thing if he had never awakened either of his bloodlines. But now that he had, Alex wasn't willing to give up on either. Both were incredibly useful, no matter which path he chose to walk. "We can help one of your bloodlines assimilate the other," Merlin said. "This would result in a mutated bloodline that retains all the traits of the dominant one, plus some from the assimilated bloodline. You can think of it as a limited fusion," he added. Alex found this option far more acceptable than the first. "But there's a major drawback," Merlin warned. "Your body must be strong enough to survive the process. The 2 bloodlines will battle inside you, one fighting to dominate, the other to resist assimilation. The stress could tear you apart." Alex frowned. "And the last method, balance. We can use a method or introduce a third-party element to forcibly stabilize the 2 bloodlines and keep them under your control. If we're lucky, this might even lead to a full fusion." Alex's eyes lit up at the possibility. "Don't get too excited, kid," Merlin said with a scoff. "That method is ridiculously expensive. I'd have to raid my own private stash for the materials. Your father's payment doesn't even come close to covering it. And with the odds of success so low, it's not a good investment." In short, Merlin had no reason to fund the procedure. But before Alex could despair, the old man added, "There is a way I'd be willing to give you the materials. For free, even." "How?" Alex practically lunged at him. "There's no point explaining unless you meet the condition first," Merlin said coolly. "Show me that your Rune-Tech is truly viable. Only then will I consider it." Alex paused, then nodded. Nothing had changed. If anything, he now had one more reason to succeed. "In that case," Merlin said, his tone turning sharp, "let's make things more interesting. You've already used up 3 months of your 1-year deadline. That leaves you 9 months to deliver a working proof of concept for Rune-Tech. If you fail, I will personally determine your future path and how we solve your bloodline problem. Failures don't get a say." Zora frowned at Merlin's harsh tone, but a subtle glance from him silenced her. "There is a safer option," Merlin added. "You've already accessed your bloodline space. With your level of spiritual force, you have the potential to become a warlock. Both your bloodlines are potent and powerful. As a warlock, you'll definitely achieve greatness over time. Better to walk a proven path than gamble on the unknown." Alex smiled inwardly. "With my past life's knowledge and experience, Rune-Tech isn't a gamble. It's the safest bet I've got." Aloud, he said, "I have a trait. Once I commit to something, I see it through. I've already started on this path, and I won't stop until I give it everything I've got. I'd rather risk everything to invent Rune-Tech than live a life full of what ifs. If I fail, I'll accept whatever future you choose for me. Very well, Merlin said with a nod. If you plan to use the Morrow crystal from the grimoire you won in the duel, Zora suggested, you should have the Tower Master extract it for you. Merlin raised an eyebrow. Why do you need a Morrow crystal? Alex gave a quick rundown of his Rune-Tech progress and explained his shift in development strategy. Zora also filled Merlin in on Alex's surprisingly cordial relationship with Pinchcoin. Winning over Pinchcoin? Smart move. That'll make things much easier, Merlin said with approval. He accepted the grimoire from Zora, who had retrieved it for Alex after the duel. Grade 8 spell, Extraction. Alex watched in or as Merlin instant cast a grade 8 spell, a feat that would drain even a great mage's mana and spiritual force, assuming they could cast it at all. A glowing crystal orb detached from the grimoire and levitated into the air before flying into Alex's hands. The rest of the grimoire crumbled into ash. Did you get a good look? Merlin asked. Alex shook his head. Not really. I didn't fully grasp what I was seeing, but it was fascinating. That's because extraction is a high-level alchemical spell used to isolate rare materials from crafted items, Merlin explained. It's one of the more complex grade 8 spells. Some say it rivals grade 9 spells in difficulty. Only a handful of mags know how to cast it. If it were anyone else, he added, it would have been simpler to just hand over another Morrow crystal. In other words, you took the opportunity to flex in front of your student, Alex thought wryly. The cost of extracting the crystal, is it the destruction of the item itself? Alex asked. Yes. You're defying the natural order, so something must be sacrificed. Makes sense. That also explains why the spell is so difficult and mana-intensive, Alex muttered thoughtfully. The trio exchanged a few more words, mostly about Alex's nutritional needs to help him recover from his bloodline awakening and prepare for whatever came next. Then, excited to test his new toy, Alex left the room with a spark in his eyes.